Hello and welcome to Nashville, where Tennessee just went on the road and beat Vanderbilt 36-23 to all but clinch a spot in the college football playoffs. I'm Ryan Sylvia. This is Noah Taylor. We're with VolReport.com on the Rivals Network. And although the final score was handily in the favor of Tennessee, although at no point in the second half it felt like Tennessee was going to lose that game, things got off to really as bad as a start as you could imagine. 100-yard opening kickoff return. Dylan Sampson coughs up a fumble on Tennessee's first drive. Vanderbilt punches it in, and it feels like at the blink of an eye, and 14-0 deficit was created in the favor of Vanderbilt against Tennessee. But Vols respond. How encouraging is it that they were able to respond with such a big hole?
Yeah, it's massive, and I think it's really a testimony to how far this program has come. And I know that sounds like coach speak, and we just heard Josh Heupel talk about it back there a minute ago, but this isn't the kind of game. This is a solid Vanderbilt team. Obviously, we talked about it last week. It's not the Vanderbilt teams of the past. They beat Alabama this year when they were number one, nearly beat Texas here on this field last month. So I think we kind of knew it was going to be a close game, especially given what was at stake. But, their ability to respond was impressive. And it's hard to look back and pinpoint exactly the moment it started to turn for them. There's just so many, I think. You had the fourth down stop. When Vandy tried to go for it, I think that was massive. Obviously, if they get some momentum there, if that huge gamble pays off, they go down and score, and then they're up 3 scores at that point in the game. You had Jermod McCoy's interception down here, tipping it around, and it just kind of landing in kind of his stomach. And then of course that drive right there before the half, where Tennessee ate up a lot of time, ran the 2-minute drill almost to perfection, and then you go up and take the lead right before half, and you lead the rest of the game. So it's kind of hard to pinpoint which moment, it really, you could say this is when it turned for Tennessee. But I think going into the playoff, knowing what's at stake, every game going forward the stakes are going to be even higher for this team. The fact that they came here and did it today after being down against a solid team by 2 scores, I think is a really good sign for Tennessee. And I think you saw the offense. We talked about it all season really to this point, but I think you saw the offense take some huge strides today as well.
Yeah, the Jermod McCoy pick was a big deal in the moment. It was a great catch, but Nico turns around and throws an interception himself, and they kind of flip field position, and still ultimately you take that interception and everything. But outside of that one throw, it felt like Nico played really well in one of his better games at Tennessee. He was asked if that was the most complete game he's played here, and he said, no, I threw a pick. So, still got to clean some things up. But how do you grade how Nico did? Because to me, it felt like he had a really nice game.
Yeah, I mean, a couple weeks ago, we were talking about that Mississippi State performance being his best. I think this was his best performance, given what was at stake, given what this win would have meant for Tennessee, given the fact that he didn't play well early and they were down 2 scores. For him to come out and play this kind of game and to recover from that interception was massive. And then in the second half, you go up to like you said, it kind of felt like when Tennessee went into halftime, they had all the momentum. When they score again to go up 31-17 early in the third quarter, you felt like it was Tennessee's game, and it was. But they did it without Dante Thornton in the second half. It was his big target. He's been probably his best target all year, and certainly was early in this game. But he had to do it without him. And of course, then you kind of lean on Dylan Sampson, Deshaun Bishop, really the rest of the way. But I think it was his best game to come out here and get Tennessee to the playoff. I think in our staff picks, I listed Nico as really the key factor for Tennessee. You brought him here to win games like this at this stage, and he came in and did that with what I think has been his best game in an SEC game.
Yeah, I think that past best game, Kentucky, not Mississippi State, obviously.
Yeah,
got the concussion. All your points still stand, but I think that Kentucky game comes in number 2, and then I think this one you probably put at number 1, also just because you talked about it, but all the things that were at stake with the college playoff appearance on the line. His receivers, Brew McCoy not able to go. He suffers a hamstring that holds him out. Dante Thornton plays really well in the first half, and then he gets hurt. Mike Matthews steps up, has a pretty nice game, including a touchdown. You have Chris Brazzell, who plays a pretty nice game. You have Miles Kitselman at the tight end position, who had a touchdown and a few big grabs as well. If you had to pick a guy, who was the most impactful at the receiver position for Tennessee?
Yeah, I guess Dante Thornton would be your guy, just given what he was able to do and get those 2 scores early for them. Obviously, they said upper body was the reason he did not play in the second half, and obviously that'll be something to monitor because you're going to need him here in a couple of weeks when you're in the playoff. But I mean, it was such a massive turn, and it was kind of interesting. That first touchdown to him, I can't remember who. I think maybe the Squirrel against UTEP last week. A little bit of a similar route where it almost gets picked, and it doesn't, and Tennessee goes on to win that game big like you'd expect. But it just kind of shows you, this week he hits it in a bigger game, and Dante obviously on the receiving end of that for the longest score since 2000, passing touchdown since 2003 at Tennessee, which is kind of crazy to think about when you look at that 2022 team and what they were able to do and the weapons they had. But yeah, I think it can't be understated what Dante Thorpe was able to give you in the passing game today.
We knew it was the longest play since 2021 when Tyon Evans took a rush over 90 yards against Missouri, but longest pass is, that's quite the little accomplishment to have, and one that Tennessee needed at the time as well. It was a big deal for Tennessee to be able to score there. But you mentioned the health of some guys. Earl White finishing the game in a sling afterwards. Dylan Sampson hobbling off the field. You see, Nico take some big hits. I'm sure he's not feeling 100% right now. Peyton Lewis, a guy that misses the second half. Don Thornton misses the second half. Broom can't go at all. It's probably a good thing they're not playing the SEC championship game because they could definitely use, I think, that extra week to recover, to try to get back to health and really catch their breath here as the regular season closes. And I think it's always a goal to play in that SEC championship game, even in the 12-team playoff when it's not necessarily necessary. But at the end of the day, this year for Tennessee, it's probably a good thing. They don't really need it. It would be great to win it and get that bye, but as of right now, it looks like they might be in the position to host, which I think you'll take that without having to play in the SEC championship game. There's still a lot of football to be played elsewhere outside the program that'll decide all of that. Defensively, though, today it looked like that Tennessee defense that we've seen earlier in the year started to come back, and I know it's a different type of offense they went up against than one they'll probably see for the rest of the season in an offense that ran the ball over 30 times and had a quarterback that can run it and has all those options. But it felt like it was another step in the right direction after a really disappointing game against Georgia.
Yeah, I thought so too. And against a quarterback like you mentioned, a guy that's given a lot of teams fits this season. We mentioned Alabama, we mentioned Texas. He's been tough to corral, and there was early. Vandy had a little bit of success. I think part of that was the momentum they built off of. Of course, they started their first offensive scoring drive, because of the fumble right, in the red zone essentially. So that kind of helped. But yeah, I thought as the game went on, just kind of got to Pavia a lot. Was able to kind of wear him down and really make him, kind of a non-factor. Of course, they get that touchdown late to kind of cut it to a two-possession game. But overall, you're right. You're not going to see many quarterbacks and many offenses like this going forward. At least you wouldn't think so. And but if they do, they passed a test today against a solid quarterback.
And I think what's impressive too is not only were they able to kind of after that first drive corral the run and be able to contain the run game and limit that, but also when Vanderbilt tried to throw in the wrinkles where they would pass the ball, and you try to roll out Diego and have a leaking tight end or things like that. Even on that fourth down stop, it's a play where you kind of leak out a tight end hoping he gets to the second level and no one really picks him up, and it's all covered. Diego didn't have much to do with the ball when he did go to pass it. And I think that's a big reason that they were able to have so much success. And the reason that they were able to, in that second half, really just say, Dylan Sampson, Deshaun Bishop, we're just going to run this thing up the gut. We're going to see where it takes us. Most of the time it finished in the end zone. If not, it was a field goal or setting them up in good field position defensively. And you were able to rely on your defense and kind of carry that down the stretch. But now Tennessee's looking at a playoff spot. Realistically, what do you think this postseason looks like for Tennessee once they're in?
I think playing at home, if that happens, that's the crazy thing. Things have really played into Tennessee's favor nationally. You go back to last week, that gets them in the position they're in today. They win today. And so far, obviously, it's rivalry week. There's a lot of games, still to play today, but Ohio State loses. Notre Dame, before we started shooting this, was tied with USC. I think you play at home, that's massive. Obviously, Tennessee's had a ton of success there under Josh Heupel. They're unbeaten there this year. I think that changes a lot of the outlook for Tennessee, but you win a game like today, and you're going to face better teams, obviously, in the playoff. But I think this is the kind of game where you get hit in the mouth early, and you've learned to kind of come back from that. And again, like we said earlier, a couple of years ago, a lot of Tennessee teams wouldn't have been able to recover from that. And I think one of the more impressive things was, as bad as this offense has been early in games, 14-0, 17-7 at one point in this game. That could kind of insurmountable for at times. It would have seemed like they're able to come back from that. So I think that this style of game winning this is a huge kind of momentum boost for them. But I think you got to feel really good about them. I think you got, with the defense, taking a step back forward today after the way they played against Georgia. You continue to get that out of them. We've said it all year. That's going to be enough, I think, to carry them far. And I know we sound like a broken record, but if this offense is able to find life the way it's been able to do and the way it did today, I think that's going to be huge for them as well.
Yeah, I mean, home field advantage would be a big deal. You mentioned how good they've been at home. What's the last time they lost to a team not named Georgia at home? Had to have been Ole Miss in 21.
I would guess, yeah.
And I mean, that's a game that I think if you ask Tennessee fans, they say they probably should have won for a couple different reasons. But then outside of that, I guess you probably have to go back to Pitt in that 21 season. Another game where, Hendon Hooker doesn't start it. He comes in, almost leads them back to victory. So they've just been so tough to beat at home. And obviously, it's the atmosphere, but it's also just being comfortable and being in your home and not having to travel and be on the team bus and all of that. So it is a big advantage. We'll see exactly what that looks like. I think there's some teams out there that I still would like Tennessee on the road against.
Yeah.
I think you look at a team like Penn State, who's we'll see what they do today. But despite what their record will likely finish at 11-1, worst case scenario 10-2. So I guess that would have to be if they lost today and they dropped to 10-2, and that would be a team I feel like you take Tennessee there. If Miami or SMU sneaks in as the loser of the ACC, I think you have to like Tennessee there as well. Maybe I'm not sure if Tennessee would be able to sneak up to that 5 spot, but if you would host a 12 seed, which would probably be the Big 12 winner, I think you have to like it. So there's some teams, or I guess that's but you know what I mean. There's some teams that in this playoff field that I feel like are beatable, and whether it's at home or on the road. And I feel like if you can kind of avoid some of those SEC teams or some of the top of the Big Ten, you have to like where you are, and we'll see where that takes Tennessee. But the postseason feels like a lock. It'll become official in, I guess, 2 weeks after the conference championships games are played. But to stay up to date with everything that Tennessee's doing up until that point, make sure you head over to VolReport.com. We have a 75% off sale for new members on annual subscriptions ending, I believe, December 2nd. But it's only a short window, so make sure you act fast to take advantage of that, because it'll be the best deal of the entire year to join us over at VolReport.com. Links to everything you use in the description. Thank you for watching.